We tend to think of the brain as, well, finished hardware, right? Like you get this amazing biological computer at birth, and that's it. The circuits are set.
Yeah, and that picture, that static view, it's where the standard model really misses the mark. The truth, based on what we're seeing in the source material, is way stranger.
Stranger how?
The brain isn't fixed hardware at all. It's dynamic. It's like this ever-changing fabric. I mean, think about it. You are physically a different person today than you were, say, 6 months ago.
Because the actual wiring has changed.
Exactly. Your neural architecture has literally woven itself into a new pattern.
Okay, let's unpack that. If we're constantly rebuilding, what's the main idea we're exploring in this deep dive? What's the mission here with this live-wired brain concept?
Well, the mission is really to get grips with this idea that our DNA isn't like a detailed blueprint for a finished product. It's not a strict schematic.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's more like it sets up a general purpose system, a really sophisticated one, designed from the ground up to be shaped continuously by the world around us. It's, an incredible evolutionary strategy.
So instead of thinking about the brain like a kid looking at a globe, where all the countries seem fixed and permanent.
Right. You should think more like a historian looking at how borders shift over time.
Yeah.
Geopolitical boundaries, they change based on influence, resources, events. They're not static.
And the brain is like that.
In a way, yes. The brain's internal borders, its circuitry, are constantly in flux. They redraw themselves to reflect your current challenges, your goals, what you're focused on. It's adjusting resources all the time.
And this ability is what lets us do complex things, like language.
Precisely. Language, culture, ethics, all these incredibly complex human traits are possible because our brains can absorb and adapt, physically changing to integrate them.
To really understand just how flexible the system is, maybe we should start with some extreme examples, the really staggering cases of brain reorganization.
Absolutely. The source material gives us a very powerful case study to start with.
Let's hear it.
It's the story of a young boy named Matthew. Around age 3, he started having these horrific, uncontrollable seizures.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was caused by an inflammatory disease, Rasmussen's encephalitis, affecting an entire half of his brain. And the only treatment option his parents had was, well, it was drastic, a hemispherectomy.
Removing half his brain.
The entire half. You can imagine the question they face. Can someone actually live, really live, with only half a brain?
That's terrifying. What happened?
It's incredible, actually. Neuroscience has shown us over decades now the answer is yes. The surgeon removed that entire hemisphere, the physical basis for so much of his intellect, emotion, language on that side.
And the space just stays empty.
It fills up with cerebrospinal fluid over time. But the amazing part is the remaining half of the brain starts to take over the functions of the missing half.
Took over everything. Intellect, language.
Pretty much. Matthew went on to lead a normal, intellectually rich life. It's profound proof that the liveware, the dynamic computation, can endure and adapt even when the hardware is radically altered.
Wow. Okay, that level of survival, that radical adaptation, it suggests the brain is kind of born expecting to be shaped, doesn't it?
It really does. It points back to a fundamental aspect of human development. Compared to other animals, human infants have this uniquely long period of helplessness.
We're born so unfinished.
Exactly. Profoundly unfinished. And that's what the sources call the gamble. We're betting that being born so adaptable, so ready to be wired by the world, will pay off.
But there's a downside to that gamble.
A huge downside. If that essential external input, that interaction with the world, is withheld, the consequences are tragic.
Which brings us to cases like Danielle Crockett, the so-called feral child.
Right. Danielle was found in Florida when she was almost 7. She'd been kept in appalling conditions, basically locked in a dark closet for most of her childhood. Minimal human contact, minimal sensory input.
And the result?
Devastating. When they found her, she couldn't speak, couldn't chew solid food, showed almost no signs of normal human social interaction, and crucially, doctors confirmed there was no underlying genetic issue.
So her brain development was just derailed.
Completely. She missed that vital, critical window when the brain circuits are practically crying out for input to organize themselves properly.
It puts a human face on those controversial Harlow experiments with monkeys, doesn't it?
It does, sadly. The baby monkeys isolated for the longest periods in Harlow's studies showed profound, lasting disturbances. They just couldn't develop normal social behaviors or bonds.
So the key takeaway here is?
The human brain is born radically incomplete. That's its strategy. But it's a strategy that absolutely depends on, as the sources put it, the rich soil of social and sensory interaction. Without it, development goes badly wrong.
Okay, so if the brain is that flexible on the big scale, let's zoom in. What happens to our internal maps, the brain's representation of our body, when the body itself changes? You mentioned Admiral Nelson earlier.
Ah, yes. Admiral Lord Horatio Nelson, famous British naval hero. He had his right arm amputated back in 1797 after an injury.
Hmm.
Months later, he started experiencing excruciating pain, but not in the stump, which you might expect. He felt it in his missing fingers.
Phantom limb pain.
Classic phantom limb sensation. Now, Nelson, being a man of his time, interpreted this as proof positive that the soul, the mind, existed independently of the physical body. Evidence for the afterlife, he thought.
A very personal conclusion. But what's the neuroscience perspective? Why feel pain in something that isn't there?
Well, science suggests his metaphysical conclusion was a bit premature, though the pain itself was absolutely real. What was happening was massive physical reorganization in his brain.
How do we know that?
From studies like the Silver Spring Monkeys experiment, among others. In that study, when researchers severed the nerve input from a monkey's limb, they looked at the brain map, the cortex.
And the area for that limb just went quiet.
No, that's the fascinating part. It didn't go silent. It was quickly invaded, taken over by the neighboring areas that were still getting active input. Specifically, the areas representing the face and the upper arm moved in.
Wait, hang on. So in Nelson's case, if he, say, touched his face, his brain might have registered that signal as coming from his missing hand.
That's precisely the mechanism believed to be at play. The neighboring territory's face, upper arm, they essentially conquer the unused real estate previously dedicated to the hand in the sensory cortex.
But why would it feel like the hand?
Because the neurons further downstream, deeper in the brain's processing pathway, are still wired to interpret signals from that specific cortical location as hand. The input source changed, but the interpretation label deep down remained the same for a while.
Like plugging a new device into an old labeled socket.
Kind of, yeah. The signal is new, but the system still announces the old label. It's powerful evidence that the brain's map isn't fixed by genetics, it's defined dynamically by active input.
This incredible adaptability, it leads right into this idea that the brain is like a general purpose computing device, isn't it? That it doesn't fundamentally care where the data comes from. The source calls it the potato head model.
Yeah, the potato head analogy. It's about the brain being this ultimate efficient system. It basically grabs whatever signals are available and relevant, and then it optimizes itself to use that data to navigate the world.
And technology can leverage this flexibility through something called sensory substitution.
Exactly. Sensory substitution exploits this core principle.
The BrainPort device is a pretty wild example.
It really is. The BrainPort takes video from a camera and converts it into patterns of electrical tingles on the tongue using a small grid device.
Seeing with your tongue.
Essentially, yes. Initially, users just feel weird patterns of shocks. But remarkably quickly, within weeks, their brains learn to interpret those tactile patterns as spatial information. They start to perceive edges, distance, movement. They learn to see via their tongue.
So vision isn't just about the eyes.
It's about the brain's ability to decode patterns wherever they come from. The eyes are just one way to get pattern data in.
And we've seen similar things with sound too, right? Like the neosensory vest.
Oh, absolutely. This is also pretty mind-bending. The vest translates sound frequencies into complex vibrational patterns across the user's torso. We worked with Jonathan, who is profoundly deaf.
And what happened?
After just 4 days of wearing the vest and undergoing training, his brain started to automatically translate those vibrations into an understanding of spoken words.
He wasn't consciously decoding.
No, that's the key. It wasn't like cracking a code. His brain had functionally unlocked the meaning within the patterns. He started having a direct perceptual experience of sound, mediated through his skin. He could tell where sounds were coming from, understand speech.
If the input side is that fluid, the output, the motor system, must be just as adaptable.
It has to be. The motor cortex isn't rigidly tied to one specific body plan. It optimizes itself to drive whatever machinery is available most effectively.
Like the armless archer.
Matt Stutzman, exactly. Born without arms, he learned to shoot archery using his feet and legs to hold and draw the bow. And he didn't just learn, he became world-class, set a world record.
So his brain just adapted.
His brain optimized its motor control resources for the body he had, using his feet and toes with the dexterity most people reserve for their hands.
How does the brain learn to control things that aren't part of our genetic inheritance, like riding a bike or using a complex tool, even a robotic arm?
It uses a process that's often called motor babbling.
Like a baby babbling sounds to learn speech.
Precisely the same principle. To master a new tool or skill, the motor system generates thousands of tiny, varied motor commands, almost randomly at first. It then assesses the sensory feedback that results from those commands.
Trial and error.
A very sophisticated form of trial and error. Based on the feedback, what worked, what didn't, the motor cortex refines its commands, gradually integrating the tool or skill until it feels like a seamless extension of your own body. If you can control it, if you get that sensory feedback loop, your brain basically adopts it as you.
That's incredible. But it brings up maybe the most fundamental question. What actually triggers all this constant, massive rewiring? Why does the brain decide, okay, time to change, time to reroute resources?
It boils down to two core drivers: surprise and relevance.
Surprise. How does that work?
It's governed by a principle called active recalibration. Your brain is constantly building models to predict the immediate future based on past experience. It essentially tries to predict away the expected, the common, the normal sensory input.
Why would it do that?
By effectively subtracting the predictable background noise, it makes itself incredibly sensitive to anything that deviates from that prediction. Anything unexpected, anything that changes. The whole system is primed to notice novelty and shifts.
We actually experience this all the time, don't we? Like the waterfall illusion.
That's a perfect example. Stare at a waterfall pouring down for a minute, then look away at the static rocks beside it.
The rocks seem to crawl upwards.
Right. Your visual system actively recalibrated, adapting to the constant downward motion as the new normal. When that expected downward motion is suddenly absent, looking at the rocks, you perceive the opposite upward motion. Your brain is showing you the error in its prediction.
And what about the relevance factor, like that phantom phone vibration feeling?
Oh yes, the phantom buzz.
Hey, yeah.
That illustrates relevance perfectly. That little buzz in your pocket could be an important call or text. Its potential relevance is extremely high in our modern world.
So the brain pays extra attention.
It overattends. The high relevance carves out neural territory. Your brain becomes so primed to detect that specific important signal that it broadens the criteria. A slight muscle twitch, the brush of fabric, sensations that are close enough get misinterpreted.
So it funnels ambiguous signals into the conclusion. It's a buzz.
Exactly. Your brain is essentially willing to make a few false alarms, feeling a buzz when there isn't one, to ensure it doesn't miss the potentially critical, real thing. Relevance trumps pure accuracy sometimes.
Connecting this idea of prediction and relevance to our deeper emotional lives. It even helps explain something like heartbreak, doesn't it?
It really does in a neurobiological sense. When you form a deep bond with someone, they become integrated into your brain's predictive models of the world. They aren't just conceptually important, they are physically woven into your expectations.
You expect them to be there, to act in certain ways.
Your brain builds models predicting their presence, their voice, their habits. When that person is suddenly lost through death or separation, there's a constant painful mismatch between your brain's deeply ingrained predictions and the stark reality of their absence.
It's like the brain keeps sending out signals, expecting a reply that never comes.
That's a good way to put it. It's a state of perpetual thwarted expectations on a neural level. This constant prediction error generates a powerful, negative, homeostatic, disrupting signal.
Which relates to that Khalil Gibran quote.
Ah, yes. Love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation. It's so poetically accurate from a neuroscience perspective. The depth of the love, in neural terms, corresponds to how deeply and extensively that person was integrated into your predictive models. The pain of loss reflects the magnitude of the sudden void in that predictive landscape.
So the brain is constantly trying to adapt, driven by surprise and relevance, but also needs stability, right?
Right.
Especially for memory. We've talked about how the real enemy of memory isn't just time passing.
It's other memories, new information potentially overwriting or interfering with old information.
So how does the brain handle that? This constant tension between needing to change plasticity and needing to preserve the past stability.
That's the core stability-plasticity dilemma. And the brain seems to solve it using different timescales for change. a principle the source material calls pace layering.
Piece layering, like layers of geology.
Exactly like that, or like layers of civilization built one on top of another. You have very fast changes happening at the level of biochemistry within synapses. Those might last seconds or minutes. Then you have slightly slower changes, maybe involving the growth of new connections, lasting hours or days. And underlying all that are much slower, more structural changes that can last years or even a lifetime.
So recent memories are stored in the faster, more changeable layers.
Generally, yes. Short-term recent experiences reside in these more superficial, faster layers. They're more vulnerable to being overwritten. But if a memory is important, if it's revisited, rehearsed, emotionally significant,
It starts to migrate?
it gets consolidated. It begins to be transferred or etched into the slower, deeper, more stable layers of the system.
Which is why older memories often feel more robust.
Precisely. Think about the fundamentals: your native language, core childhood memories, ingrained cultural knowledge. These things form the deep, slow layers. They provide a stable scaffolding upon which new, faster learning can occur.
This explains that psychological finding. Ribot's law?
Yes, Ribot's law observes that in cases of brain injury or dementia, recent memories are typically lost first, while older, more established memories are much more resilient. It's not just because they're old, it's because they've been burned down into those slower, more structurally stable layers of the brain's architecture. They can withstand the weather of daily experience and even some forms of damage.
So wrapping this deep dive up, we've seen the brain isn't fixed hardware, but this incredibly dynamic, live-wired system. It can adapt in amazing ways, adding new senses, controlling new kinds of bodies.
Constantly adjusting its internal maps based on what's happening in the world.
And the engine driving all this change is fundamentally about prediction, noticing what's surprising and prioritizing what's relevant to us.
That adaptability is arguably our species' greatest biological trick. It's what makes us so versatile. And it leads to a final kind of provocative thought.
Okay.
We often talk about reading someone's life story from their physical remains. Like Ötzi, the Iceman scientist, could deduce his diet, his travels, injuries, diseases, all from his preserved body.
A biological history book.
Right. Now, extend that idea. Given that every experience, every skill learned, every deep relationship physically alters the microscopic structure of your brain, it's conceivable that someday, perhaps far in the future, we might be able to read the rough outlines of a person's life directly from their brain tissue.
Read their life from their neuron.
Not specific memories, perhaps, but the patterns, their major concerns, where they invested their time and attention, the kind of information they processed, maybe even the culture they were embedded in, all etched into the intricate microscopic script of their neural connections.
The life story written in the wiring itself. Wow. That definitely gives us something to think about.